Good afternoon and welcome to Seniors Count. I'm your host, Tula Mall. On our show, we believe that you are the foundation on which Boston was built. So our goal is to connect you to resources, benefits, and information to enhance your life. Thank you for joining us. Today, my guest is Jessica Sperandio, a visual artist who creates installations based on her family's immigration to Boston during the Armenian Genocide. The collection of these memories into art offers a new perspective on how we remember and encourages others to explore their own past using creative means. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great. So let's start with your little background about yourself. So you're an artist. Where did you study, or tell me a little bit what led to that path?
I've always been an artist from the start. Definitely runs in my family. I went to the University of Rhode Island and studied painting, and right now I'm at Mass College of Art, working on my MFA, which I'll be done in August.
Well, congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
So tell me, where do you draw inspiration for your art that you're currently doing?
Mainly from family stories, memories. I became interested in my family's past because it always sounded like the stories were from movies. It was a bit surreal. And I began documenting and making physical objects in order to have some sort of family tree, narrative, history.
So did people in your family speak about it, or did you first start learning about your history through movies and then moved on to asking people questions?
It was not spoken about.
Okay.
I was sort of the first generation to poke at them and say, why aren't you guys talking about our family history? And it was just something that wasn't spoken about. It was very traumatic. I'm 3 generations out, so it's a lot easier for me to talk about it than my mom or my grandmother.
So who did you start asking? Was it your mom and your grandmother?
Yes.
Okay. And what did they say? Or how did you start those conversations?
Well, I started asking questions about my great-grandparents, and they said, we don't know anything. And I'm like, okay, so I started asking specific questions, because they do know things, but I started with basics, like what kind of food did you guys like to eat? What was home like? What was their personality like? And slowly memories started to appear.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what we do in one of our other projects. Is it takes a long time to really draw those memories out, especially if people either haven't thought about them in a while or don't want to.
Exactly.
So, what do you do with these stories, or how do you make these stories into art form?
After I write the stories out on paper, I start sketching with a pencil on paper. The narrative, and then I start cutting away with an X-Acto knife the many portions that are missing, and a picture forms. It really is a combination of the narrative, the missing pieces that make the piece of artwork.
So you talk about using paper and then what else?
An
X-Acto knife.
Yes.
So is most of your art in paper form, or what other materials do you use?
Okay, good question. I started with paper and gouache, which is a water-based paint. It's like a watercolor. It's just opaque, not transparent.
Okay.
So before they came to America, I have the works in the paper and gouache because they're more natural materials. Once they came over here, I started to get works cut out of an acrylic sheet, sort of like plexiglass, because it became an industrialized culture here.
Yep.
My great-grandfather was working in a factory. Times were very different. Everything was mass-produced here. You get your food at a grocery store. And back in Turkey, they would have little markets, fresh food every day. So life completely changed, and I'm showing that through material as well.
So let's, to give the people an idea of what your art looks like, I want to show your first image. It is called Culture Unraveling, right?
Yes.
So can you talk to us a little bit about it? Because, it's hard, I think, even for me to understand, even after looking at your art, what you mean by you're cutting out pieces. So talk about the piece of art.
Okay, the ship, which I found through records that they came over on, I have a patterning that I used by overlaying Turkish and Armenian rug design to create my own pattern. So you'll see a constant in the pattern in different works of art.
I was wondering about that.
And the
'cause there
colors
is-
also, yes. So I have some colors from the rugs of Islamic art as well as Armenian art. And I use the patterning, I change the patterning in order to create the landscape, to give it some sort of psychological effect on the landscape. And with this, I also added some silk, which was an important part of the culture. It was one of the, silk holds an importance in the rugs.
Okay.
So the culture unraveling was the bits of the silk starting to curl up and about to come off as they came to
They came
America.
to America. Oh, wow. So it's hard to tell from the image, but how big is this
That
installation?
This is 48 inches wide by about 24 inches.
Okay, so two by
Two
3
by-
feet?
yeah,
Yeah, okay,
about.
wow. All right. So let's talk about this next piece. So this one seems like it's a much smaller piece. This one's called
Yes.
Cyclical Nature.
Yes.
So it looks like there's maybe it's not a drawing.
It's they're 3 layered cut drawings.
Oh.
That are placed on a wall, and it comes off the wall about 3 to 4 inches.
Okay.
And the cyclical nature has to do with displacement of people, how constantly throughout history this happens in many cultures.
Yeah.
And it seems cyclical even today. It happens, it ends, and then it happens in another culture. And I have a hand on there, which was one of the important pieces of my great-grandfather. He lost part of his hand. And to me, I know my family all worked with their hands in all of our jobs and how important that is to me. So I had the hand grasping.
So this is, what materials are used in this? Can you
This
explain
one
that?
is paper.
Paper. So this is paper cut out, and then I'm assuming it's shaped somehow. Again, it's hard to see on a flat surface.
Yes, it's pinned to the wall, but it comes out a few inches. Yes.
Wow, I really like that. Did you collect other stories? So because this seems less specific to what happened to the Armenian, to your family,
Right.
and more about maybe what can happen or what has happened to many different cultures. So had you collected stories from other people besides your family, or?
Well, I have read about any culture I can possibly find. I love biographies. I've read. I'm fascinated by culture, and so yes.
So you drew
absolutely.
from your general knowledge about what happens as life goes on and people change and they move from place to place.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, let's look at the next one. The next one is Absurd Dinner Party. So tell us about this one.
Okay, this was inspired by a piece or a photograph at the Armenian Library and Museum in Watertown. And there was a photograph of the soldiers, the Turkish soldiers, with this platter with 2 men's heads on it, and it looked like a dinner platter. And I thought, how absurd to put it on this beautiful silver plate. And I thought about the body parts that my family members had lost, an ear, the hand. So there's different parts on each plate, and this beautiful, I mean, the architecture in Turkey is gorgeous, and it was part of both cultures. So I have this feast that is absurd with different parts.
Wow. And I can see the similarity in the background. I mean, I'm assuming you use that same style of drawing the graphics from the rugs as you did in the first image.
Yes.
So I can see there's some cohesion to the storytelling, which at first when I looked through them, I was like, it kind of clicked, but until you spoke about it, I didn't really make the connection. Okay. So that's really interesting. And so is this again a 3D image or a 3D piece of art?
That one lies pretty flat against the wall.
Okay. And where are these, or where did you, I guess, post these, or where were these shown, these pieces?
These are on my website.
Okay.
And it's www.jessicasperandio.com.
Okay.
And they will also be up in the summer at my Mass Art Thesis exhibition.
Is that what this is all part of?
Yes.
Part of your, okay, so they haven't been really publicized yet.
No, they're still in progress.
They're still in progress.
Yes.
How many pieces will your thesis contain?
That's a good question. I'm hoping it'll probably be narrowed down to about 10 pieces that I feel make the most sense together.
Okay. And have you interviewed anyone else in your family besides your mother and your father? I mean, you said your mother and your grandmother.
Yes, my aunt and my cousin. And I'm getting a little bit further with some interviews, but there's still some more work to be done.
Have you done any research to people that maybe aren't part of your family, but are Armenian or just general Armenian?
Through books I have.
Through books, okay.
Absolutely.
And most of your family lives locally, or are these
Yes.
interviews? Okay.
Yep, locally.
That's really
Boston.
interesting. So you call this work Memoryscape.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that, what that means?
Sure. A lot of artists have had dreamscapes, landscapes. I really wanted to capture when they came to America, when they're closer to me in time, to be able to walk into a memory with some of the larger installations. Once they're here in Boston, I mean, they lived in this area right here, Roxbury, Dorchester, and I guess for me, it is a way to get to know them, to be able to walk inside this memory.
Why do you think it's important for us to think about different ways to uncover our histories? Or I mean, I'm assuming you do think it's important, since you are discovering.
Of course I do, yes. It is a constant problem that, displacement continues to happen, even though, we're educated. We need to educate parts of the world where this does continue to happen.
Yeah.
And it's important to bring it up because we want to stop this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because often you read memoirs you said you love biographies in a written form.
Yes.
And often there's images in there, usually of the family or something specific. But I never had thought about different ways to express a memory, such as an abstract visual. You can paint a picture, but this is an abstract visual. If, let's say, a senior or someone in our audience was interested in kind of exploring this, could you give them a couple tips? I mean, this is complex, and your education is vast, but maybe something for them to think about when trying to express themselves.
I try to think of what really stands out the most, the essence of the memory. Is it something that you smelled or heard? And I really try to capture the feeling. What stands out most, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So your senses, I think about my senses: taste, smell, sound, sight.
When you're working on a piece like this, do you have notes on the side so that you have a visual as to, like you said, sound? What sounds are you listening to? Or is it all kind of in your head? And
No, I definitely look at lots of books. I'm at the museum often, the Armenian Museum.
Yep.
I look online. So I do a lot of research as well.
Okay. How long do pieces like this take for you? I mean, if this is paper, you're cutting paper, I can't imagine
Right.
it's quick.
It gets quicker with time. That piece, I have done a couple different versions of it. The
Okay.
first one, I wasn't pleased with. That took maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. So how big is this? Is this multiple pieces of paper?
That's
that we're
one
looking
piece.
at? This is one piece?
Yes.
Wow. So even one mess up and you got to start all over.
Now you find
No?
ways to work. Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, there's
One major mess up maybe, but you find ways to work around it.
How thin, or like, what is I'm trying to think how to explain this. It looks like the cuts are pretty thin, like they're really close together.
Yes.
Could you describe a little bit more what that looks like? Because again, it's just kind of difficult to see just in an image. Like, is it like an inch between the cuts, or?
No, tiny bit of
Even less.
space. Yeah,
Wow.
it's very detailed. I
Yeah.
get really close, but I lose track of time. I would say similar to sewing. I have a lot of sewers in the family, and I'm amazed at the tiny little detail work they do. So
Yeah. What would you say is the length of time that it takes to do a piece like this?
a couple of weeks.
And you're spending like, how many hours a day? I mean, you say you lose track of time, so.
I would say for this one, I was working on it 3 hours a day at
Wow.
that time.
Okay. All right, let's show another image. So this one is What Became of the Chair, which is very different to
Yes.
these other pieces of art you've shown us.
Right.
So talk about this one.
My great-grandmother used to rock in a chair every night, and I think it's part of not talking about what happened and just trying to shove everything under the rug. And so what became of the chair is it exploded and it's in pieces once.
Did you know you said your great-grandmother.
Right.
Did you know her, or is this a story that was told to you?
These were stories that were told. I
'Cause-
was just a baby when
Okay.
she passed away. So.
Because was it your great, you said your third generation, so
Yeah.
that would be your great-grandparents came over.
Yes.
Right, and so with
Yes,
your
and she lived
grandmother.
with my grandmother, and my mom lived with them as well. So they
Okay.
were all, because they came over with nothing.
Yeah.
So
extended family.
yes.
Yes, I like that. I like that. Where did you get these materials from? And where is this at? Is this in your house where you have this?
This is in the Student Life Gallery at Mass Art.
Oh, okay.
The chair I got at a yard sale. I refinished it with the colors that I use in my work, and that's a paper cut rug
Oh, wow.
that I was working on because my grandmother was talking about a rug that they had to give away. And so I started creating one, and then I found out she still had one left. So I was like,
Oh.
well, okay, you forgot to tell me that. I'm halfway done with this.
So you were creating not a paper version of it?
Yes, a paper version.
For her?
Yes.
And she had a real version of
Yes,
this.
but she forgot to tell me that. She told me about the one that was missing. She was trying to find it when we were at the museum looking through these. I'm like, what are you doing? So
So it was a form that you could use to create the
Yes.
image. Oh,
Yes.
oh, that's so funny.
yeah.
That's so interesting. All right, and I think this is the last image. It's The Present is Where Life Quivers. Tell us about this one.
This is my great-grandfather. He used to come home from work. He worked at General Electric in the with metals, I believe melted steel, and he would come home every day and smoke for hours until my grandmother would come home from school, and she said the house would just be filled from the waist up, and you couldn't see anything.
Oh my goodness.
So
That's a lot
I
of
was like,
smoking.
what? Yeah, clearly, I think PTSD had set in at this point. And
yeah.
so I took a bunch of memories that I learned about him and put them in the cloud, but they're difficult to pull out unless you're really up close looking. And that's because they didn't talk a lot about it until late in life.
Yeah, that must have been quite, I'm assuming the house that your great-grandparents lived in must have been pretty small.
Yes.
So just imagine, I was just trying to imagine what that must have been like for your great-grandmother to come home and it's like cloudy. I mean,
Right.
there's a feeling there of can't see. I mean, just alone what she was feeling, just, oh my goodness, what's going on? I can't see. Is he okay?
Yeah.
What's going on in his mind that he has not stopped?
Right. And they never.
Were these cigarettes or
to-
cigars?
Cigarettes.
Ooh, even
Camels.
harsher.
Yep.
Camels.
Yep.
Wow, even harsher. Oh, wow, so interesting. What happens? So tell me a little bit more about this. How big is it? Size?
That one is 48 inches by about 5.5 feet tall.
Wow.
So it's
and again, this
my
is
height.
paper.
This is actually acrylic, right?
Oh.
So the top piece is a blue acrylic that casts a blue shadow on the wall, so there's more smoke when the sun hits. And the bottom portion is also going to be acrylic, but in here it's paper.
Okay. Is acrylic tougher to use as a medium or
Yes,
than
I have
paper?
to get it laser cut. I send it out. I upload the image in Adobe Illustrator, send it to a company, and they cut it since it's pretty thick.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's also very toxic. So.
Yeah. Oh wow. But these are pieces that would have a longer lifespan. Maybe,
Absolutely.
Than paper. Well, if you can believe it, we're almost out of time. Maybe you just can leave us with a last thought about what your experience has been in drawing these memories out. Something you want to
Okay.
leave our seniors with.
You know, it's been difficult at times, but absolutely worth it. I think learning about family history and talking to family members has brought me so much closer. And I wish they had talked more to their family members.
I agree. Once those stories are lost, they're lost.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you so much for coming. It was so nice to meet you, and thank you for sharing your art. And I wish you the best of luck and
Thank
success.
you. Thank you, likewise.
Okay. Thanks for watching Seniors Count, brought to you by Mayor of Boston, Martin J. Walsh, and our Commissioner, Emily Shea. To contact us, please call 617-635-4366 or the Mayor's 24-hour hotline at 617-635-4500. You can also email us at elderly@boston.gov, and you can find us on Facebook. Have a great afternoon.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself,